Center is an environmental education nonprofit which serves the community by offering educational programs and 380 acres of preserved land in which to study the environment. And in the last few years, we've done 2 exhibitions a year of environmentally themed shows. Most of them are site-specific installation exhibitions. Some are indoor exhibitions, which would have a theme like insects or nesting. So they're all things that relate to the environmental education work that we do here, so that people can come here and learn about the environment not just through typical environmental education, but through artwork and through having a sort of emotional or visceral experience with an art piece in order to highlight something about the environment. So unlike a sculpture park, which may be a little bit more of an urban situation, ours is forest, ours is, lots of trees and lots of habitat. And so we provide a space for environmental art that is a rich, complex ecosystem rather than a more simplistic sculpture park. One of my favorite pieces in this show is by Chad Curtis. It's called Mother Nature. And he was struck by the way our ecosystem needs to be managed. So we have to manage the space, just the way you have to maintain an interior space. You have to vacuum the floor and fix the windows. We have to make sure that there's not too many deer, that we have to make sure that certain species of plants, get kind of contained. Chad was really struck by that, and he thought it would be interesting to create a fake landscape within this real landscape. So he created a sort of fake mountain, and his piece has a live video feed, and it is shooting constantly the mountain, and people can see it from the web. And it's just a really interesting take on how we are both viewing nature, how we're being viewed in nature, how we now experience nature through these little lenses and media, and what it is to be a real landscape.
When I was thinking about putting the exhibition together, I wanted a variety of perspectives. I didn't want everything to be about saving the environment or anything like that. So I wanted multiple, very different and multiple angles and artists to deal with it in surprising ways and ways that were unexpected to me. I didn't know what each person was going to come up with, and I was interested in seeing the people that I did ask what they would do. I hope that the visitors take away from the entire exhibition many different ways to think about nature and their relationship to it, and a recognition about how many different points of view there are in looking at any particular situation. The title of my piece is Little Red Riding Hood as a Crime Scene, and when I thought about this project, I thought about making a contemporary version of Little Red Riding Hood and reversing the victim and the victimizer. At one time in history, we were at the mercy of nature, and nature was the threat. And as I thought about it, now it seems more that we are the threat, and we are the ones that are consuming, and our greed and our desire to consume everything is destroying. My piece symbolizes the reversal of our relationship to nature, that since we've learned to dominate it, and not only exploiting nature, but exploiting each other, and the repercussions of that, so that now the wolf is the one that's regular size, and in my installation, Little Red Riding Hood is a giant and is represented by very large legs from the knee down, and then the text in the piece is what big eyes you have, which is kind of about greed and about taking things in, consuming, and what big teeth you have. And so it's now the wolf talking to the Little Red Riding Hood. I'm very happy with the results. I think that it's a really enjoyable and engaging and questioning exhibition that you can go through and enjoy.
If people incorporated green practices in their life on a day-to-day basis, their lives would improve, their outlook on life would improve, and we would be a happier, more responsible community.
The Delaware Valley Green Building Council really has filled a gap.
We're trying to educate folks from lay people to the experts about why green building is important and what are the kind of practices that are the best.
If you're looking to learn about sustainability, high efficiency buildings, there's not a better organization in the country that can help you.
Our focus is to advocate sustainable building practices, principles, and policy. And we start from the corporate level, the government level, and we take it all the way down to the residential individual level.
We promote green building in the entire region. So the Delaware Valley Green Building Council is actually comprised of an area that goes all the way north to Lehigh Valley and all the way south to southern Delaware and far enough west to Chester County.
It's a great place to meet other professionals that are involved in sustainable building.
I do think that we have the ability to be the greenest city in the United States and to, in many ways, be a model also internationally as well.
The construction industry in the United States produces over half of the waste produced in this country.
Our society has become a throwaway society, so buildings don't last long, and they're generally disposed of in a landfill, which is not sustainable.
It is our belief that the landfill will slowly become obsolete. Recycling markets will grow, and our goal is really to be a zero waste facility.
You know, we can't take without replenishing, and we can't throw away because there is no away.
Because if we use all of the resources, then what will we build buildings with in 50 years?
I can imagine as a vision that we all live, work, learn in buildings that use less energy than they consume. I see that it is within reach with the work of the people at DVGBC.
We wanted to do a sustainable building for basically two reasons. We wanted a low operational costs, when we cut the energy bills, and number two is we wanted to do an educational facility. We wanted to do an exhibit. But the green roofs we have now are basically there to absorb energy from the sun, but also to be permeable surfaces. So the water is not being shed off like it is a traditional roof into the storm water system. Daylighting is a big accomplishment of this building. The building is situated in a way that we can use natural light as much as possible.
We put diverters on the downspouts to carry the water that hits that roof into cisterns located in the basement. And that water is filtered and pumped over to the office building to flush toilets. So we are reducing our overall, if not our direct, energy consumption.
People spend 90% of their time inside. So everything that we can do to make the inside a healthy place to be will impact people's lives immeasurably. It'll impact them in the office, in their house, in school, in the hospital. We'll all be more productive.
I think eventually green building is just going to become the standard. I think there won't be a rating system, it'll be incorporated to building codes, and it'll just be the way that we build buildings.
We're thinking about the profit that we make when we build the building, but we're also thinking about the people who are living and working inside of the building, and we're thinking about the planet. We're thinking about the impact of the building on our environment.
I don't want to leave an environment to the next generation and the generation after that's any worse, and certainly would like to make it better.
This is the future. There is no alternative to it. Yeah, we see with what's going on in our environment today.
Taking care of our planet is the right thing to do. And this is an organization that focuses and has an impact on our community locally, regionally, and across the state.
I choose to build green. Green is good, for lack of a better word.
My name is Charlie Camps, K-A-M-P-S, and I'm with Amerisys, which is short for the American Sustainability Initiative. Amerisys is rather unique for the housing construction business because we design and set the criteria for homes and then procure all the materials and deliver them to the job site for builders. So in a sense, we provide an entire kit from which a builder can construct a house. Amerisys' origins are rather strange. We never intended to be in the housing business. Our sister company is involved in developing brownfield properties, and as they got developed, we constantly were seeing people buying expensive homes that we felt they couldn't afford. And we decided to look at the industry. We conducted a lot of research, and it was quite apparent that the way homes get built had not changed in over 100 years. So we started down a mission to see whether there was a way to change household economics. We allow people to buy a much higher value home for a lesser price as an Amerisys home. We've worked hard to have the utility bill in that house be a fraction of the traditional home, and we're taking that further. So we took a little bit of a stealing of an old process and modified that with computerization and high technology, and eventually designed smaller homes that could be efficient, could use materials more efficiently, and could go together much more quickly, and put that whole package together. So literally in one contract, a builder can have an entire house that's affordable, efficient, and sustainable, have all those parts delivered to his job site, and throw it together in as little as 6 to 8 weeks. The fact that a house can get built in 8 weeks as opposed to 8 months means that people aren't traveling back and forth to that construction site for all that extra time. On the physical side, we use SIP walls, which are very efficient. We use windows and appliances that save energy. If you take all the parts that go into one of our houses and total up the energy saved over 10 years, it's more savings than what your automobile will use as energy over that same period of time. So in effect, you get free auto transportation. When people look at an Amerisys home, they automatically fall in love with the efficiency and the environmental benefits. But one of our focuses has really been the goal of creating personal sustainability. And our agenda is to create housing that literally ends up being half the price of a normal house. So if you're buying a house, you can have a mortgage that might be half the normal mortgage. Or if you're a tenant and you're renting an Amerisys home, you can get into an Amerisys home where the rent is half the normal monthly rent. And our agenda was to enable people to save that money and be able to use it for other things and have a more enjoyable life. If maybe mom can stay home with the kids, maybe dad doesn't need 2 jobs, or maybe you can just spend a little more time enjoying life. So we went to FEMA 3 weeks ago in Washington, D.C. and presented to them how the Amerisys product could actually give them a return on investment rather than spending millions of dollars and having nothing to show for it. When a disaster strikes, They can go in and create an entire neighborhood, but it allows the people who've lost their houses to move into new quality facilities, stay there until they can solve their problems, and once they all move out, FEMA has an entire neighborhood they can sell to recoup their investment. The national housing situation is rather severe. We've got huge unemployment. We've got people being foreclosed out of homes all across the nation. And if we can get people building houses once again, we can get a lot of those people back to work and really change the whole thing around.
My name is Bill Kunze. I'm the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania chapter of the Nature Conservancy. Our mission is simple and really huge. It's saving nature. And we can't save it all. So we have to know where to put our efforts. The Delaware River is a global treasure. I would guess that 99% of the people living in the Delaware watershed have no idea that that's the case. It's also really important for people. Essentially, the entire population of the New York metropolitan area and the entire population of the Philadelphia area and everything in between get their drinking water from the Delaware or its tributaries.
The main stem Delaware traverses about 330 or so miles. Its headwaters emanate in the Catskills. The east and the west branch are the major tributaries in New York State. They meet around Hancock and make a winding journey down through the Delaware Water Gap, down past Easton, through the more industrial parts of the basin that can be down around Philadelphia, Trenton, Camden, and Wilmington, all the way out to the Delaware Bay and into the ocean. So, like many of our large rivers, it covers a variety of different terrains and includes a number of different habitats for species.
We have three basic strategies in our freshwater conservation work, and all three of them are really important for the Delaware River. We call them the 3 F's: flow, fish, and floodplains. So the first of those is about flow. The Nature Conservancy is the leader in the science of how a river breathes across a year. So the water level goes up and down seasonally. It goes up and down depending on whether there's a dry spell or a wet spell, and it goes up and down in different parts of the river. And the plants and animals that live in and along the river have evolved in light of all of that.
The Nature Conservancy has really looked to integrate healthy flows, or this natural variation in flows, into water management decisions. And so the needs of the river are included with the needs of humans, and a balance is found so that we're meeting the needs of both. And in such, we can sustain our healthy rivers and communities that rely on it while also meeting the needs of people.
The second strategy has to do with migratory fish.
The Delaware River is one of the largest and last remaining unfragmented or free-flowing rivers east of Mississippi. Because of that, it allows for migratory species such as migratory fish to course upstream and downstream throughout the main stem. The Delaware is known for diatomous or migratory fish species. There's about 8 different species of them, but American shad is really one of the iconic species, in the Delaware. In addition to migratory fish, the Delaware also provides unique critical stopover habitat for migratory shorebirds. I know many of us have heard about the shorebirds that visit the Delaware Bay. They make a very long, arduous journey from South America all the way up to the Arctic, and they stop at the Delaware Bay to refuel, to feed and gorge actually on horseshoe crab eggs. So without that stopover, they wouldn't have the necessary energy reserves to get to where they need to have their young. So the Delaware is really critical because of its ability to support migratory species.
The third kind of strategy that we're pursuing on the Delaware River has to do with floodplains. So a river system is not just the water in the channel. It's also the banks on either side, and in particular the floodplains of the banks and how the river as a living organism moves in and out of the floodplain seasonally.
Floodplains have been altered through time. They've been converted, cleared, and detached from rivers by agriculture, development, or by dams and levees. So there's been a lot of alteration to these systems, and I think that we're starting to recognize that when we disconnect floodplains from rivers, obviously we lose floodplains. But in addition, we lose some of the valuable services that floodplains provide both to the river and to people. And in some situations, we can actually increase some of the risks associated with floods because our floodplains can't function in the capacity to help reduce some of those impacts.
The reason the Nature Conservancy is so critical to the future of the Delaware River is that we're the only organization that brings a combination of an on-the-ground presence everywhere in the watershed, because we have chapters in Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York. Combining that with being part of a larger organization and being able to draw on all those resources. And our orientation is to try to keep nature intact so that both nature and we, the people who have evolved in nature and who are still connected to nature, can have full, vibrant, enriched lives.
Hi, my name is Shannon Detweiler, and I want to take you on a tour of Blue Mountain Recycling today. Material first enters the facility, the trucks come across the scale, they'll get weighed, they'll go down to the tip floor and they'll dump. From there, the material is pushed onto a feed conveyor where it comes into the building. We have a check there with a couple of gentlemen who do an initial quality inspection. They're going to make sure that there's no trash in the mix. Anything that comes in bagged, they're going to open the bags. And they're just going to pull out any of the random items that we get, like a bowling ball or a Big Wheels toy that we can't let go through our screens because it will hurt the screens and destroy them. The V-screen is the main separation for the single stream. It's named a V-screen just because it's in the shape of a V. Paper goes up the sides of the V because it's two-dimensional. Containers, because they're three-dimensional, will roll down through the center of the V. The paper goes up the sides of the V-screen and then it makes its way onto two conveyor lines. From there, we have about 10 to 12 gentlemen doing a last quality check. They're going to pull out any cardboard, any containers that made it through that V-screen sort. After the last quality check, the paper will go off the end of the line. A steer loader will push it onto a feed conveyor and then it will get run through the baler. We pull out the cardboard with a cardboard separation screen. It has two levels. Cardboard, because it has a high surface area, will actually travel over the top of the screen while the rest of the material will fall down through. From there, the cardboard makes its way on a conveyor and will eventually get sorted and pushed onto the load conveyor and then through the baler. The containers will actually drop down onto a conveyor that will take them back out to the front of the building. It'll run across the tip floor and then it'll dump them into our container line so they can be processed there. The metals are pulled out with magnets. We use a magnet to pull out the tin. We use an eddy current, which is a reverse magnetic force. When it's spun at 2,900 RPMs, it actually repels aluminum. So we pull out the aluminum that way. The plastics are actually separated using optical sorters. The infrared eyes are able to read what kind of plastic it is, and then air blowers push that specific plastic onto a feed conveyor to go through a quality sort. Those materials will go into a storage chamber. Once we have enough of them, we can release a door, and they actually get fed onto another feed conveyor and will go through a separate baler, and the individual commodities will come out baled. The numbers on the bottom of the plastic bottle signify what the kind of plastic is. A number 1 is a PET, which you'll find is either a soda bottle or a water bottle. A number 2 can either be a milk jug, which is your natural plastic, or it can be a pigmented, which is like your detergent bottle. If you get into the 3 through 7s, you get into PVC, you get into polypropylene, polystyrene. Each plastic is different, and that's why only certain ones can be recycled. I think you should recycle because it's the right thing to do. I mean, ultimately, you want to get as much trash and as much waste as you can out of the landfills, and the way to do that is to find ways to recycle different consumer packaging and goods, and ultimately get to a point where upwards of 80–90% of material that's out there can be recycled and reused. For the long-term sustainability of the planet and for future generations, it's the thing to do.